Good afternoon, everybody. I'm Rolene Marks. This is the Israel Brief brought to you by Lay of the Land. And before we head off into the weekend, let's take a look at those top stories. And June is Pride Month around the world, and here in Israel it is no different. And minutes earlier, the Jerusalem Pride March started, albeit under very, very strict security. Now, Pride in Jerusalem is always contentious because of protests by the ultra-Orthodox, who often say that an event of this kind shouldn't take place in the holy city. However, it is an event that takes place every year and is growing in size. However, this year there are security concerns after the organizers of the event were sent threatening letters. If you remember, in 2015, a young woman was stabbed fatally by a Haredi man. Now, also happening today is the funeral of Rabbi Uri Zachar, a famed Haredi filmmaker, and it is also expected to take place under heavy security because of events in the city. So residents and visitors to Jerusalem can expect traffic delays and can expect a significant amount of congestion. Now, yesterday, a European Union envoy addressing a conference about the Middle East in Jerusalem made some very, very concerning remarks. He said that it is no wonder Israelis experience terrorism given the situation that Palestinians have lived under for 74 years. Now, while he did mention very, very briefly that 20 Israelis had lost their lives in the recent spate of terror attacks, he did not mention anything about the incitement or the education of hate. In fact, he doubled down on his comments, saying that Palestinian children who grow up having to live behind what he calls a separation barrier, we call it a defensive barrier, looking at homes getting demolished. He also did not clarify that homes that are demolished are most often the homes of terrorists or their families who have helped carry out terror attacks. And these comments are highly, highly concerning. He has not taken into account the decades-long conflict, the incitement of hatred, the pay-for-slay scheme that sees an economy of terror. And we are following the story very closely to see whether any kind of action will be taken against him or any kind of apology will be needed to be given. Blaming the victim of this kind of hatred, and in this case, blaming the victims of terror attacks for their horrendous experience is absolutely beyond the pale. After several delays, our Defense Minister Benny Gantz has finally met his counterpart in India. The two defense ministers have signed memorandums of understanding to increase security and defense cooperation, especially since we mark 30 years of incredible cooperation and growth of ties between our two countries. And our last story takes us to the United Kingdom, and Lay of the Land and the Israel Brief join well-wishers around the world in saying Mazel Tov, Your Majesty. Her Majesty, the Queen, today marks the start of her Platinum Jubilee weekend, and just moments ago, the annual Trooping of the Colour event concluded with a spectacular flyover, including F-35s forming the formation of a 70 to celebrate 70 remarkable years as the monarch. Now, many people have said, why has the Queen never visited Israel? Well, visits to Israel are done, or to any country, are done at the request of the host country and the Foreign Office. but we do have it on good authority that the Queen, as well as members of her family, including the kings-to-be Prince Charles, Prince William, and the Duchess of Cambridge, enjoy very, very close relations with the Jewish communities, with the chief rabbis of the Commonwealth. We know that the Queen and her late husband, the Duke of Edinburgh, the Prince Philip, enjoyed very, very good relations with the Jewish community and very, very personal relations with several rabbis. The Duchess of Cambridge works extensively with Holocaust survivors, and last week in a very, very moving event, Holocaust survivors and victims of other genocide pay tribute to the 96-year-old monarch who has reigned for 70 years. At the moment, she is the second longest reigning monarch in the world, only surpassed by King Louis XIV of France, who ascended the throne when he was 6. So we say, Mazel tov, ma'am, long may you reign. And this brings us to the end of today's edition of the Israel Brief. But don't forget to check out our website at www.layoftheland.online. We're on Facebook at Lottel Site. If you haven't joined our community, please give us a like or a follow. Our YouTube channel is The Israel Brief. Please click on that big red subscribe button so we can get stories from Israel out to the masses. And of course, we're on Twitter at Lay of the Land 5. I'm Rolene Marks, wishing you all a peaceful, a safe and a healthy weekend. Shabbat Shalom. Join me again next week as I bring you those top stories Monday to Thursday right here on the Israel Brief.